Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive, where we'll be digging into the world of AI, specifically the ethical side of things, especially in finance. Though, as we'll see, a lot of this applies no matter how AI is being used. Our main source today is this article. It's called How to Solve for Three Common Ethical Issues in AI Models. It's from Poro, a financial services platform.
Sounds pretty relevant, yeah.
Uh,
AI is everywhere these days.
It really is, and this article starts off with some real-world examples of where AI has gone wrong. Like, did you know that biased algorithms have sometimes led to people being unfairly imprisoned or even denied housing?
Oh, wow, yeah. It's a powerful reminder that we really need to be careful about how we develop and use AI.
For sure. And get this, spending on AI is expected to double in 2024 to over $200 billion.
Whoa, that's a lot of money.
I
We
don't
definitely need to get this right.
Exactly. The article focuses on three main ethical issues: bias, explainability, which is basically how transparent the AI is, and its impact on jobs. But before we even get into those, the article stresses the importance of inclusivity, making inclusivity like the foundation for ethical AI.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you only have a limited set of perspectives involved in designing and training these systems, you're bound to miss things.
Exactly. And those oversights can cause serious problems, especially when you're talking about financial decisions.
You need a variety of voices involved throughout the whole process, from collecting data to developing the algorithms to testing and implementation.
Okay, so let's break down this whole bias thing. The article talks about two main types: bias data sets and algorithmic bias. The dataset part seems pretty intuitive to me. If the data used to train the AI is already biased, the AI is going to learn those biases.
It's like trying to teach a child with a biased textbook. They're going to learn a distorted version of reality.
The article gives this crazy example about Amazon's recruiting algorithm. Apparently, it was trained on 10 years of resumes, mostly from men, and the algorithm ended up penalizing resumes that even mentioned the word women.
Wow, that shows how easily bias can slip in, even when no one's trying to be malicious. We're all shaped by our experiences, including the data we collect and how we interpret it.
Okay, so that's biased data. But then there's algorithmic bias, which is more about the rules we set for the algorithms themselves.
Yeah, even seemingly neutral criteria can introduce bias if you're not careful. Like this example in the article, a compensation algorithm that ended up favoring younger employees. It put too much weight on hours worked. And younger employees, often with fewer family commitments, were putting in more hours. So it looked like they were more productive, even though that might not have been true.
That's a good example. You'd think hours worked is a pretty objective measure, but it's clearly not the whole story. And this is where things get really tricky. The article points out that if we use already biased AI to train even more AI, it creates this vicious cycle.
Yeah, like a game of telephone where the message gets more and more distorted.
So, what can we do about this bias problem? The article outlines four strategies, and they actually seem pretty helpful. First, we need to be thinking strategically about bias right from the start.
Yeah, from the very beginning of a project, not just trying to fix it after the fact.
Right, like anticipating the potential impact on different groups and building in safeguards.
Exactly. And that leads to the second strategy, which is recognizing our own biases. We can't be totally objective, so we need to actively seek out different perspectives.
Like bringing in people with diverse backgrounds to help us see blind spots we might not even be aware of.
It's like having a team of editors for your code. The more eyes you have on it, the more likely you are to catch mistakes and improve the final product.
Okay, the third strategy is data partitioning. Honestly, this one was kind of over my head at first.
Basically, it's about breaking down your data into smaller groups, so you can test for bias in specific areas. Say you're building a system to help approve loans. You could separate the data by income level or location to see if the algorithm is unfairly favoring certain groups.
So it's like running smaller, more focused experiments to make sure things are fair across the board.
Exactly. And the last strategy is continuous evaluation. AI is always learning and changing, so we can't just assume that fixing bias once is enough.
It's like always being on the lookout for signs of bias and being ready to adjust things.
It's an ongoing process, not a one-time fix.
The article talks about how Paro, the company behind the article, tries to avoid bias in their own systems. They've designed their freelancer matching algorithm so that newcomers to the platform aren't disadvantaged.
That's good to hear. Instead of just relying on past experience, which could favor established freelancers, their system promotes new experts based on client feedback and their actual work.
Yeah, I thought that was really clever. It levels the playing field a bit. Okay, so we've talked about bias. Let's move on to the second big ethical consideration: explainability.
This is a big one, yeah. The black box nature of AI can be pretty intimidating, even for people who work with it every day.
Yeah, I get that. It's like, how can you trust something if you don't understand how it works?
According to the article, something like a third of financial professionals are concerned about the lack of transparency with AI, which makes sense, especially in finance where accuracy and accountability are so important.
The article asks some tough questions about this, like how can you adjust a financial model in response to, say, a recession if you don't understand how the AI is working? Or how can you make sure it's behaving ethically if you can't follow its decision-making process?
It's like driving a car without knowing how the engine works.
Yeah.
You might be able to get around, but you wouldn't feel very confident if something unexpected happened.
So what's the solution?